Hello, my friends, and welcome to another one of our virtual celebrations. This one is being filmed for May 16th, the day before Tax Day. We have a very exciting celebration for you today. We have Paul Calabro as our practitioner in the house. We have Spirit Hill in the house. By the way, they will be live at the Hilltop Center on May 23rd. And then also we have Daring Greatly in the house, soon to be in one of our live services. So settle in, make yourself comfortable, and join us as we celebrate what it is to be alive on the world today.
A little mystic walking down the road, selling spirit with words quite bold. He said, "You're the place where the divine dwells, and it's all in the knowing. Gonna set you free, such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free." She pointed to the north, south, east and west, spun around in circles, said, "Be my guest." She said, "You're the place where the divine dwells, and it's all in the knowing. Gonna set you free, such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free." I know sweet ease as I'm living, and I know I receive as I'm giving. Ooh, it fits like a glove, and it sure does feel like love. I know I'm kind as I'm living, and I know I receive as I'm giving. Ooh, it fits like a glove, and it sure does feel like love. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. I know pure joy as I'm living, and I know I receive as I'm giving. Ooh, it fits like a glove, and it sure does feel like love. Such it, and I'm not gonna set you free. Such it, and I'm not, you're all set. Now is the moment that never ends. Now is the moment that never ends. Now.
We open this service with a prayer for an invocation, a calling. And so we answer that call here today. We give thanks for all that we have, that we are simply birthed into this world by the cosmic forces that surround us. And how beautiful it is that we get to be here together and enjoy that which is. And so I know that this service comes forth from that heart, that deep soul that is all around us, that cosmic oneness. So as we gather today, I know that the words come forth by beloved Dr. Guy Williams, by the music, and by everyone here today as we share in this divine melody that is the sound, that is the mother, that is, as the Buddhists say, the mother light shining forth on all of us and everyone that we encounter. May that light go forth as that expression of creativity, of love and beauty. And so it is.
So it is.
In silence, God ceases to be an object and becomes an experience. And now we can just
find yourself in a comfortable position where you are calm and at ease. Rest in that subjective power of mind. That creative power of the universe. The subjective power of the mind and the creative power of the universe are one and the same. Feel and know that mind. That is a conscious state by which is spirit. Whether it is human or God, individual or universal. Mind, the law of cause and effect. You have the power from that vantage point to change any effect by a creative relationship to that fundamental law. You are that which is formless, pure creative potential.
Thank you again for joining us. I have a feeling that this talk is probably more directed to myself, but I hope that you appreciate it as well. I've been thinking of something that Dr. Holmes says, and he says that, we can take almost any condition in our life, both as an individual or collectively, and if we distill it down and we distill it down and distill it down, eventually we arrive at the premise, which is this: a belief in separation. What he would say is something that would be almost essential in Buddhism, which is the essence of all suffering comes from the perception of separation. You know, I'm thinking of this great line from the great Hindu poet and philosopher Tagore, where he says, "We read the world wrong and say that it deceives us." And boy, what is it that we do when we read the world wrong? What I would suggest is this, is that we are on the brink of a revolution no different from the Copernican revolution, that there has been a misperception of how things are, that when we begin to understand it, it's going to be an absolute game changer, as big as understanding where we sit in this great, infinitely expanding, intelligent universe. I believe that shift in perception is coming from a spiritual place, an awareness place, a consciousness place. There's a thought, actually it's more than a thought, it's a scientific fact, that when children are born, actually when they're in the womb, and for several months after they are born, that infants exist in an experience of absolute oneness with everything. They really don't have a separation between themselves, their body, and anything that is happening external to them. And then somewhere around 9 months old, very interestingly, the crown of the head, the place that is called the fontanelle, the fountain, begins to close. And around this time, the infant begins to make the distinction between themselves and the outside world. They begin to understand that there is them and that which is not them. They begin to perceive things from a place of separation. Some metaphysicians would even say that this is the beginning of what we would call original sin, or the primal error in the development of consciousness. Now, what's interesting is that in many indigenous cultures and other cultures around the world, that when a baby is born, it literally never touches the ground, and that it is held by one member of the family or another always. And so in those months of development, the infant is always having an experience of being connected, so that when they begin to make this distinction between themselves and outside of themselves, they are doing it in an environment that is supportive and connective. And what's fascinating about this is that those children, as they grow up with a greater sense of confidence, a greater sense of connection, a willingness to be adaptable, an intention that allows them to move more easily through this experience of change. But let's face it, change is the one constant in our life. It's the one dynamic that is present in all living things. In fact, even our body, as they say, every 7 years, every cell in our body is replaced by another cell. And so we are a living, breathing experience of change. But there's resistance to it, isn't there? Or often. You know, I just finished reading this absolutely remarkable book called The Ministry of the Future. And in that, there's this great line that I read where it says, "I recalled also the old notion from psychotherapy that people fear change because it can only change for the worse, in that you turn into a different person and are therefore no longer yourself. Thus, change as death." Wow. This idea that change is death, that something falls away. I'm thinking of this because I'm packing, and I ran across my high school album, and there's this line in it that you hear over and over again, right? Don't ever change. That is not a blessing. That is a curse. Because if we don't change, we calcify, We stay stagnant. We mineralize. There's no vitality. Vitality and life and change are the constants. And so think right now about your own life and things that are going on. But what I want to offer is this, is that change isn't happening so much at the external level, but that it is a way that we begin to perceive things. And I've been talking about that this month, in that whatever is going on in your life is going on in this moment. If I was to ask you to, think about what you had for breakfast, or who your high school teacher was, or, what the first album that you bought was, you would be in this present moment, but your mind would travel back in time. It may even re-experience those things at a visceral level. Your body may hold memories of those things, but those things are taking place now, in this moment. The same thing if we're talking about the future, like, where are you going to go on vacation next year? Or where do you plan on retiring? Or what are you going to have for dinner tonight? Again, you may think about it. The mind may be active in imagining it, but it's not moving into the future. It's still in the present moment, but we are experiencing it in the present moment. And so what I'm getting at is this, is that anything that is happening in this moment. And this moment is the moment of divinity. And it doesn't mean that we don't have a history, and it doesn't mean that we don't have a future. Of course we have those things. But where we experience everything is in this moment. And it's not happening so much in our mind, and it's not happening so much in our body, although they are having experiences and sensations. But it's that me beyond me, right? That inner witness, my awareness that is observing and experiencing this. The founder of our particular teaching, Ernest Holmes, says this: "Therefore, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it is not a question of its willingness nor of its ability. It's entirely a question of our own receptivity." So we begin to experience this when we move away from the perception of separation from our past, our future, our external world, our internal world, or wherever it is we perceive an experience of separation. When we move from that, we move into this eternal experience of limitless potential, of infinite possibility, that we connect with that divine presence, which is always saying to us, you are not separate, you are not broken, you are not in error. You are my beloved, and all that I have is yours. One of the things that I think that we play with often is an idea that science is grappling with, but kind of coming to this thing of understanding, which is that our consciousness, our awareness, is an activity of the brain. But that's not true. And a good example of that is there are countless recorded and verified experiences of people having a near-death experience. And in virtually every one of them, there's something that happens. The brain is literally dead. There is no movement. The body is dead. And yet when these people are resuscitated or come back, they say things like, I was hovering over the hospital bed and I could see that doctor and that nurse working on me. Or I was looking above the accident and I saw that paramedic coming to me, and I saw that person praying for me, or whatever the case may be. But in all those experiences, one, the brain is dead. There's no register of any kind of movement or activity. And each of them are having this sense of, I had this experience. I saw that. I watched this. Who is that I? Well, that is our true self. That is the consciousness. That is the I behind the self, behind the body, behind the mind. That which is limitless, deathless, eternal, infinite potential. So there's this beautiful book by this guy, Shakid Fadala Hari. It's called The Garden of Meaning. And he writes this thing. All human experience is thus an attempt to help us rise in consciousness from the limitations of conditioned consciousness to its boundless infinite origin. The ultimate challenge is to realize that the personal life is inseparable from perpetual cosmic life. This realization is the root of durable contentment and happiness for the purpose and meaning and direction of whatever there is in the universe to be at one with the one and only one. It's a lot like the quote that Paul gave from Thomas Merton, correct? That in that place of silence, in that place of connection to all things, God ceases to be an object, but God is an experience. It's a beingness. As Anthony DeMillo says, all is well and all will be well, and everything is a mess and all will be well. And so our practice is to be in that place, to direct our awareness away from what was or what could be or what should be or what we wish was or any of those kind of things, to be in the present moment. You know, and for these last couple of weeks, I've been talking about this wonderful treatise called the Lotus Sutra by a man by the name of Patanjali. And he begins the sutra, if I can remind you again, with this. Now, the teaching of yoga. Yoga is to still the patterning of consciousness. Then pure awareness can abide in its very nature. Otherwise, awareness takes itself in the patterns of consciousness. So, a lot like what we begin to understand about the mind-body connection, a lot of what we begin to understand about consciousness itself, the science of consciousness, which is this. What we pay attention to is the direction that we are going, and it is the container that begins to form the experiences that we have. And so if our awareness is completely distracted by the body or the mind of one thing or another, if it's absorbed in something, if that's where our attention is, that becomes the template for what our experience is. But in that stillness, anything is possible. Everything has potential. We are not bound by one law or another law. You know, we are not bound by a precedent of what was. We are, as Dr. Holmes says, we are then free to flow into that infinite sea of receptivity. And there's a training for this. And again, as I've been talking about, and I think it's kind of our practice for the month, is something that Paramahansa Yogananda talked about. The first is to follow a simple diet which proves suited to our own condition. And you know, of course this has to do with eating, but it has to do with so much more. You know, the constitution that we understand about who we are, the mind food, the things that we feed. You know, and again, I'm thinking of this Buddhist idea of mental hygiene. It's not just, as Jesus said, what goes into our body, but what do we take into our consciousness? What do our words say? They flavor how we see things. And if our constitution is the true self, divine, then are we nurturing ourselves in divinity, or are we stuck in a material or secular existence? And his second injunction is this, is that a master, one who practices self-mastery, one who has realized themselves as an omnipresent soul, not just a body or an ego, perceives all beings with a striking similarity, meaning that we see the divine in all living beings, and that we see how interconnected we are with all living beings. I have this quote sitting in my head, and it's again from the book, The Ministry of the Future, where one of the people says, humans made dogs from wolves, but dogs taught humans how to be people, in that how we socially interact, how we work cooperatively. And so there's a divine connection to everything. Everything is part of everything else. And then finally what he says is this, is to learn to be comfortable within our own purse. And I believe what this means is, of course, not to overextend ourselves, not to burden ourselves, but to understand that in this moment, everything that we need is right here. When we practice gratitude, things begin to expand. There is that biblical injunction that says that when we are trusted in small things, we are given great things. So it's really about mindfulness. It's about the value of prudence, how our present self can calculate the future self and organizes and plans itself accordingly. So let's consider that our practice, right? How are we nurturing ourselves that supports the constitution of who we are? How are we practicing seeing the divine in all things? And how are we learning to be comfortable with where we are in this moment, realizing that when we are grateful in this moment, when we are present to this moment, it expands and grows into the limitless possibilities of all things. And so, my dear friends, during this path of receptivity that we are on, I invite you to be open, to explore the idea that you are loving awareness, and that loving awareness nurtures who you are, connects with all things beyond the veil of separation into the experience of connection, and is grateful in this moment, allowing this moment to unfold into infinite possibility. And so to you, dear friends, and those whom you love, and those whom you receive love from, I wish you from the bottom of my heart many, many blessings.
Try my best to improvise and take it all in as it comes. Can't let the little things linger in your mind, no, no. Not gonna waste any more of my time. Here for this moment, can't let it slip away. Gonna stop worrying about all the things I can't change. Breathe every breath, it'll never be too late. Find your serenity. Sun is shining on my face, breathing in the wide open air. I ain't
So we've reached that point in our service of conscious giving. And so I just want to be here in this moment of gratitude for what we have here at the Hilltop Center, and how this is us and you and myself and all of us are making this place happen. And the beauty of Reverend Guy's talks and his literary genius and the spiritual component to it, and how there's just it's a great blend of goodness that's taking place. So deep gratitude I have for us all today. And so if you are giving today, there's the box, as Rob Bell says, it's like a joy box. So it's the joy box. So feel free to just extend your love in the form of currency to keep this place expanding and growing, this outdoor venue, the concerts that we'll be having, and everything that comes along with it is us today, brought to you and to everybody in this world through that currency that we have today. So deep prayers for all of it, everything that is taking place, this evolution that is continually happening. I give thanks. I call this forth into being, and so it is. Thank you all.